Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Psychonaut Sessions. This is your host, Daniel Moeller, and alternating co-host, Aaron Conaway.
Conaway, that's me.
That's him. And today we're going to do something a little bit different, a little special. We're going to turn the tables a little bit. You see the play on words there? Yeah. Okay. And I am actually going to let Aaron more so be the alternating co-host of this one. So just to kind of give everybody a heads up, in just a couple of weeks from now, Planet Comic-Con, Kansas City, we're going to be there together.
Less than 3.
The two of us, April 22nd through 24th. Go online and get your tickets. You can find our Facebook event, and please reply going. But Aaron, we're getting together to talk about something very special.
It's yes, and very much questions like, what is NVCC? What is New Vision Comics Collective? So this is kind of we don't have the elevator pitch locked yet. I certainly don't have the quick answer to that. So this video is going to be the long answer to that question.
The most original comics universe ever.
Yeah, that's in no way can we back that up, but I like it.
It needs to be said, though, that's how we are going to be known as at Planet Comic-Con. So when you look us up on the Planet Comic-Con app, we're going to be known as New Vision Comics Collective. If you've watched our social media posts, you've seen that we've had a lot of hashtags for New Vision Comics Collective, NVCC for short. So this is our explanatory note on that.
So we've been building and tending and growing, which is synonymous with building, New Vision Comics Collective since we were kids. It was originally just New Vision, and then we discovered that somebody beat us to the punch there, and while not terribly prolific on their part, it still was already out there. So we took New Vision Comics and we added Collective, also in part because not every angle of NVCC is comic book. We also have short story collections, novella. There's a lot of things coming down the pipe here that will make that Collective part make sense.
Rock albums.
That would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Let's mark that down right now. Let's
I'm not kidding about that. It just came to me.
Yeah,
You're
awesome.
watching right here, ladies and gentlemen, live. The brainstorming's happening.
All right, so
making the butter.
Basically, the history of New Vision, the origin story, if you will, kicks off in a small town, southwest Missouri town of Mount Vernon, Missouri, where we both grew up, along with a third member of our triumvirate here, Jason Thrasher, who, if you're a fan of Psychonaut Sessions, you've heard name dropped many times, certainly on Drinks Around the Table as well.
Enter picture of Thrash, if you'll let us.
Yeah, we'll have to clear that with
get some
his
permission.
people. But anyway, so yeah, 3 childhood friends. We were comic geeks. I mean, we were video game nerds. We were pretty much anything that was cool and hip in the 80s. We were into it.
Can I just make a small clarification there?
That we weren't cool and hip?
Well, definitely we weren't. But that you and Thrash were more of the video game nerds. I was like the little brother that they never let play, but just was like, well, you can sit and watch.
Yeah.
Well, I just play for hours because I was totally the little brother of the group. But looking back, it's an awesome childhood memory. And I love it. But then I was like, God damn it. So anyway, continue.
Fair. All right. So as far as our characters go, in the original inception of our characters, which we'll get into name dropping all of them and all the different angles and sides once we get into New Vision proper. But as far as the origins go, what would you say was one of your bigger influences on the games we played that ended up becoming New Vision? Like, all right, I'll kick off. So one of the influences on that for me that when we'd be playing in the yard with like homemade swords and, where we just nail 2 sticks together and make a sword. Thundar was a massive influence. Thundar the Barbarian. Cartoon-wise, Smurfs was huge. G.I. Joe, Voltron.
I was going to hit on G.I. Joe. Hit on G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe was huge for you.
Really hard. G.I. Joe was my bread and butter growing up. I loved everything else. I loved Transformers. I loved Voltron, Thundar. I actually never hit on Thundar until later in life because I didn't have access to it. But He-Man, of course, huge influence. But I mean, G.I. Joe is it's so in my DNA. In terms of how, our influences and playing it, you had different, I didn't seem to have the same access as you did because you even had access to Dungeons and Dragons, figurines that I, for some reason, couldn't find. But man, that cartoon blew my mind. I didn't seem to get growing up as carte blanche access to TV and other things as you did, as weird as that is. My mom grew up in Mennonite, so there was I'll just say that right there. But totally, all of those ring true for me. That right there is the brick and mortar more the foundation rather of the building that is New Vision in my head.
Yeah, well, I guess that's my point. We're both definitely 80s babies, but Last Starfighter, Willow, basically every 80s list that's out there fed into what New Vision became. We were pop culture whores before it was popular.
You're making a really valid point here, and we talked about this a little early. And at first, I was I didn't know if I was agreeing with you 100%, but I think movies and cartoons were TV was definitely the primary influence leading up to this. Is the schema that started influencing really directly the comic angle. Yeah,
I mean the brain candy that our imaginations got is very evident to me when I look at anything we've made New Vision already.
I was always go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say I was really, other than G.I. Joe, which was the big. I mean, I liked all the other mainstream, but I was always very interested in some of the kind of side, cartoon and toy lines that I particularly look to even now as an influence on New Vision, Mask, Visionaries, just these things that only lasted a season.
Right, yeah.
And maybe not even a full season, I think Inhumanoids. Centurions, they had this aspect to the play of their toys and were just so different and weird. It's the companies back then were just trying to throw things against the wall to find out what would stick, and just something about the experimentation of that just really has always appealed to me, and I hope is kind of seen in my aspect of New Vision in the future. Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying is that, I can see, and I mean, kind of what this video is for is trying to show that, if you see it, it makes sense because we grew up in the 80s. I came more at the book side, I think. Choose Your Own Adventures, Joe Deaver's Lone Wolf series were huge on how I approached making up stories as a kid, because as I was the oldest, so I tended to direct the movies as far as what or so a play on Vision Tales, the comic that is going to be issue 0 will be at Planet, by the way. Simple plug. Vision Tales actually came from, we would play Horse, the basketball game, and instead of playing for letters, we would pick our characters and we would say, okay, well, Savage is gonna attack Puzzle Master with a haymaker, and you make the shot, and if you made the shot, then Daniel, for instance, as puzzle master in that scenario, would have to make the shot and say what he would do. And as the oldest in that case, I was usually the arbiter of the rules, much like a DM, where it's like, well,
they kind of fluctuated sometimes, those rules, a little bit.
But anyway, so yes, that's some of our non-comic influence, but comic book wise, where I for me, and I'll ask you for like where is it for you, but for me, New Vision went from yard play stuff to wow, we could start making like, let's fold paper and make comic stuff. When we got beyond the big two, like once Image was on the horizon, it had dropped, and we discovered you were an artist that, like, I mean, we discovered that before Image, but basically when we started making comic books, homemade stuff, my big influence on what we could do came from Image, came from Valiant, came from Ultraverse. What about you? Like, where?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to say that there were others, because I was even into first comics and now comics before Image, but it didn't never really occur to me that we could do this on our own and that we could just invent stuff. I was like in that camp where I was like, well, maybe I can draw X-Men someday, and it didn't occur to me until Image dropped. Until Rob Liefeld's, like, when Youngblood, especially when Youngblood #1 came out, Youngblood and Savage Dragon, when I saw those two on the shelves, more so than even Spawn, there was something in me that was just like, we can make our own shit. And look, there's just like all these like new characters. You can just like make new characters, and just my notebooks just started to fill. I mean, I already had in my mind, like we had invented a couple of stuff together when we were much younger, but it was at that point where it was just like every page was filling up with character after character. But the formulation of that, because when you look back on Image now, it's just like, it like really, like those early issues are just, it was all about the art, you know.
Yeah. Story was secondary,
but when
not third.
Valiant came around, but more so Ultraverse. When Ultraverse hit, there's no other comic line out there that, for me, probably emulates what I always wanted to do with New Vision.
Yeah.
Like the look, the feel, that like it is, Ultraverse is huge in that regard. I loved what they were doing. I loved every book they had coming out. The story and the art perfect together, the cohesive universe, just fun as hell.
Well, and the different flavors, because I think that's what kicked it, because Valiant was for me. It landed what you're talking about for me first, from the, and I mean, granted, they didn't, you know, a lot of those characters weren't, they bought the rights, like it wasn't like they created them, but the universe they were building with like the oh man, I'm totally brain farting on what their event was called. Unity, yeah. Unity and how, but then so that kind of got me into this framework of wow, so we could take these characters and we could, you know, New Vision characters, and we could do like that, we could use this as a blueprint. But then Ultraverse is where I was like, but you have different flavors, you don't have the same vibe, because Valiant was very, for me anyway, the vibe was very similar regardless of what book I was reading. And so Ultraverse had all kinds of different things going on. So it was the marriage of those two that kind of solidified what New Vision could be for us, like what we could turn it into. Anyway, all those aspects basically started to come together into an idea, and much to our parents' chagrin, it started to formulate in the back of church pews. Like when we were at church, we would sit together, the three of us, and we would take the bulletins and, you know, send notes back and forth, and, you know, Moeller would draw something, and yeah, okay, cool, yeah, that's that, and then okay, where's this guy live? And so it all started to coalesce, this bath of influence and things we loved, and started to map out. unfortunately, Thrash didn't. He loved it all, but didn't have the passion to go with us. Basically, like he would create some characters. He basically, Savage is a character that Muller had drawn a picture, and he was like, "That's Savage," and that. So he kind of made up a little tidbit about it. But he keeps an eye on like what we're doing, but he no longer participates over the years. But we still include him because we love him.
Boy, in my heart.
So, and I mean, plus, so many trips we would go with him, and we'd go to like Tulsa or we'd go to St. Louis on these trips, and we'd be playing D&D in the back, but in between games, we would keep dreaming new vision. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he's always been integral to the whole origin story of it.
By in the back, ladies and gentlemen, he means in the back of a van, which was driven by Thrash's uncle, who was like our chauffeur. And so as young teenagers, we would just go on these cool weekend trips, and it was just nothing but going to comic shops. This was the height of the Image era, by the way. So it was exciting.
Yeah.
Time to be in a comic shop, and we'd go, and that's all we did. We just go to comic shops, watch movies, and play D&D and eat and talk comics and build this universe. Yeah. I associate the building of New Vision with, trips to St. Louis more so than anything else. I do think that like there's a landfill somewhere near Mount Vernon that is going to be a gold mine someday of all those church bulletins, because I don't know where any of them are. But
I've got two of them, but there should be countless. But this a little bit. Basically, we grew up some. We got more influences. We went through darker phases. We had, Vertigo was huge for both of us. Dark Horse became a huge thing for me. I believe you as well. Like there were elements of it as well for you. You always had more of your finger on the pulse of the more offshoot older stuff, like now comic stuff and indie stuff that I am not as versed in, but then we ended up coming to Kansas City, like in early aughts, 2001.
Yep.
Where we made the infamous, we've talked about it on a couple of times on shows. We went to a con, we'd made up an MVCC character, Griffin.
This is all yours. This character is all yours, by the way.
Yeah.
This is your idea. Yeah.
You drew it, but it was dark. It was, bloody. It was, and we thought we're going to this show.
This was the time of Powers, right? This was the time when Powers was out. 100 Bullets.
Right. True crime stuff.
True crime. It was huge in comics. It was Alias.
Yeah. And so
it's that era.
We went to a comic show. First comic show we came to in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. We had our place. We were like, okay, this is going to be our town. We're going to take this town. And we did a cold approach to Jim Valentino. And we're like,
then president of Image Comics.
Yep. And he was very cool. He very much shot us down, was like, guys, this isn't, because we basically just came up to his line, and Muller had the pages that he had drawn, written out the dialogue and the story that I had written, and we were just going to hand it to him.
Will you publish our comic?
Yeah. And bear in mind, it wasn't a done comic. It was, the first 5 pages, I think. It was basically, we were in our heads, it was going to be like, this is a little taste, but you can come back.
Right.
We'll get you more.
We're going to totally intrigue him with this.
Yeah. He didn't open it. He was just like, this isn't how you do it, guys. It's very cool of him. He wasn't like, you're idiots, which he would have been well within his right to do. But so we went back, tail between our legs a little bit, and kept things going, kept honing it.
Then after that, MVCC really took a seat at the back seat at the table, seat at the back.
Yeah, went to the back of our heads a little bit. It's always been kind of percolating.
Yeah.
and we each play with it.
Life continued.
Life's moved on, and we ended up where we're at now, where we decided, well, a couple years ago now, where we started mapping it out again and kind of showing each other what the other one had been thinking and tweaking and building on in the years where it had gone quiet. I mean, he's got his own comic. He's written multiple books, not NVCC related. I did the same. And then we thought, hey, we're both kind of self-publishing. We're in this space. What if we got the band back together again?
It's like we didn't, and I think it was a confluence of many events. We didn't really know how to navigate the comic industry for a really long time. Sure. We didn't really have a pulse on how it was even manifested online, if at all. And we had just found, a couple of really nice communities in the past couple of years that really helped promote each other's work and stuff. And so, and that, like, the comic industry is kind of in that place too right now, where that's kind of where it's at. It's like this independent vibe, total social media based, communities, happening right now. And I think it was that mixed with you and I both had already had a couple of projects under our belt, and our confidence was really boosted. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, like we can actually do this. It's not just the two of us messing around.
Right. Well, yeah, it no longer had that. I mean, for me, I'll speak for myself. The Valentino, that stuck with me for a while of like, okay, that's not how you do this. How do you? And so you're right. Like the age of blog had passed, and these communities started like building up together of like-minded artists who are like, look, I'm just going to do my thing. And I mean, the advent of, Instagram and all these places where artists in particular, pencilers and painters and whatnot, could showcase their work and garner attention both from fans and people to do projects with at the same time. And so, yeah, it was like this marriage of all these things where we were like, well, I mean, we're both still passionate about it. These characters are still alive. These stories are still alive for us. Let's give it a shot. Mm-hmm. Technically, the very first thing we did was Oracle. You did Oracle. Would you like to discuss what Oracle is?
Yeah, so it really kind of just came into one of those slumps where I was just tired of not making comics, because that's what I've always wanted to do. And so I just sat down and started doing it. It's when my kids were younger. So it was about 7 years ago, 7 years ago.
Yeah,
I think. But I wanted to, cause I've already written a book at that time, but it was not accessible for kids, but I wanted my kids to have something that they could look at and read. Now Oracle was a New Vision character that I wouldn't necessarily say was necessarily made for kids, but I kind of shifted his origin and his role around a little bit to where it could be like all ages friendly, and went about it in that direction. And I just sat down and I just drew, and I didn't try to hone my skills in any shape or way or form. I'd kind of been out of practice for a while. I just went at it. So it's a black and white book, and it came out a few years ago. You did the forward for it. I had originally put it on Amazon just to see how it would do. Again, I hadn't quite jumped into that social media bandwagon yet, so I didn't really know how to promote. And
it wasn't even part. I mean, while it was an NVCC character, like it didn't come out as a New Vision product.
Right,
New Vision wasn't around anymore.
Yeah, I just put it out just to see how it would do.
Yeah.
I mean, it just kind of sat there. I've got a full story developed, ready to go. I've got the first issue completely done and a few pages of issue 2 featuring one of your characters, Sojourn.
Yep.
So it only just recently, because we decided to come back together, it's like, okay, I'm going to reissue this sucker as NVCC, as New Vision.
Because comics. Yeah, it always was, but it didn't. it's not like you when you made it. I mean, and you're just playing in that book. It's so fun. It was so fun watching you do comics finally too. And I mean, the fact that Sojourn, the character of mine that he adds at the end or showcases that he'll be in the second one, was actually one of the times where we flirted with, like, could we do that? And it wasn't enough to seal the deal at that point, to like run with New Vision, but.
And so, like, before that, for years, we had our own little, like, kind of pockets of the New Vision universe. And it was then, because I wanted to bring one of your characters in, that we were like, okay, so when does this happen in this character's life, and how does it influence, like, their path going ahead? And from there, I think in the background, even though I didn't continue Oracle, we started, really mapping all of this out. Like, really creating a structured, cohesive, like, timeline and universe.
If you're following my work at all, you know that I had Appalachian Blues come out in Harrowed Earth, and Harrowed Earth is one of our eras. So to break down the eras of New Vision, we basically have 3, and what Daniel just said about the, like, us having different pockets. This is where this kind of comes into play a little bit, because we discovered in building the timeline of which character was where and what was going on when Oracle came out, that we came at the characters that mean them and the stories that were meaning the most to us at that time were coming at two different directions, meeting in the middle. And it kicks off with of the 3 eras, the first era is the Expanded Earth era. Would you like to run with that? Because that was basically mostly we had toys in each other's toy boxes, but basically Expanded Earth was molars.
Yeah. So it needs to be stated that, like, obviously the New Vision universe is very superhero centric. And so, but we try to do our own take on them. But Expanded Universe is really the era that's kind of like what we consider the dawn of superheroes. Not that they necessarily never existed, but definitely where they started kind of coming into the public eye. Really start kind of getting out there. I mean, we're talking full-fledged, full-on, like, costumes and just, like, out in public. But when I think of Expanded Earth, to go back to those, like, influences we talked about earlier, when I think of Expanded Earth, I think of the 1990s Spider-Man cartoon show. Like, that whole just, and X-Men cartoon, and, like, that whole, like, just fun costumes, bright, just action adventure, total great time. So the breakdown of the majority of my characters really kind of hit there, like he said. I kind of, like, start in this era, and we kind of timed the timeline to New Vision to map to our real life growth here. So really, the Expanded Earth era starts in the, like, early 1990s, like right in even, like, 1990 itself, and, like, moves onward. So that whole era and decade of the 90s is my prime playground for fun. So yeah, full-fledged superheroes, powers, costumes, even a little bit of, like, G.I. Joe influence in there. I don't know if you want me to go into breakdown of the characters at all, or
I've got a couple I'm going to pitch to you that, like, we'll each, like, spin a little of what toy, like, are not necessarily the most important toys, but certainly our most favorite toys from the era. Of it. But so, for instance, and keeping in mind that our goal here is to this is a lot, I understand, but it is a big whole universe of stories, and we have tons of them, and it's all mapped out, but none of that matters a ton. Like, each story we're trying to actually just entertain you with a story, so none of the rest of this really matters. Like, if you find a character that you dig and only want to, like, follow that character, you'll be fine. You don't need to, like, follow every single thing we'd love it if you did, but you don't need to. It's by design. All the stories are it's not like it's a massive event thing where you've got to follow every little book and every part that comes out to have it make sense.
Right.
If we do our jobs right. But that being said, so for instance, who's Maximal? Like, as much as you want to, because keeping in mind that some of this stuff is about to drop, and so we don't necessarily want to spoil anything for you, but like, just a quick breakdown.
Maximal. I don't even know if I should talk about the name, but so Maximal was a character I made up early when we were formulating the stuff when I was very young, and I remember us doing play in the yard with Maximal as well, very distinctly. Kind of a mix between like Darkhawk and Spider-Man mix, a lot of Darkhawk influence, a little bit of Green Lantern in its early years, but I've since kind of modified that. Oh, there goes, modified that and changed it into something a little bit different. But his original name, because I just made it up as a kid, a lot of my characters, I just made up names. It was just a different language. They had no basis in any kind of like English version of language, but his name was Crimax.
Which Google that and you'll see why we changed the name.
It sounded cool.
It did sound cool.
And I was intending on keeping it that way up until just even a few months ago. And Aaron was like, you know what Crimax really means, right? In my naive brain, I'm like, what? It's just a made up word. And like, he's like, no. So if you Google that in the Urban Dictionary.
But it has taken on new meaning.
They stole it. The people, the internet
stole
it from me.
I mean, yeah, because Crimax I would be shocked if it didn't predate it becoming popular slang. But anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, that it's going to involve like alien tech kind of stuff and just fun villains, like crazy, just outlandish sorts of things. I mean, if you ever watched that early Spider-Man 90s show, it's pretty much like that. I mean, that's my vision for it. Very city-based kind of superheroics. So that's Maximal, and you will be able to see Maximal's very first appearance in a comic book in Vision Tales #0, which you can get at Comic-Con. Boom.
It's true.
Written by Aaron Conway.
And you'll also, so one of my toys in Expanded Earth, you'll also see in issue 0, which is why I started with these characters. But Rebound is a character of mine where, I mean, if we're doing comparisons, he's a cross between Impulse from Young Justice back in the day, like when he first hit the scene, and Speedball. When Speedball first hit the scene, he's a younger character, maybe not quite as, I don't even know how to explain what, like, impulse control, which Impulse's name is fitting, not that angle necessarily, but the viewing the world through younger kid, preteen eyes. His power base is gravitational, but you'll get to see he and Maximal kind of hang out together in issue 0 of Vision Tales.
Team up of the century. This is like Maximal and Rebound in Vision Tales is really, I would say, the most innocent. I would say that the New Vision universe is kind of where it kind of comes together. It's like that most kind of like innocent, childlike toy box out of all of it, in my perspective.
Well, and I mean, I think that kind of spreads into Expanded Earth era altogether. Like that feel, not to say it's all going to feel like that, as we'll get into here in a second. There are characters that are, if dark and gritty is where you live, no judgment, but
There'll be some of that there.
Dark and gritty.
Yeah.
But there's some dark and grittiness in the Expanded Earth era. But there's also shadows, and who's Sai Shadow?
Sai Shadow, another character that had an original name, but maybe we'll maybe talk about that another time. I don't. I'm a little hurt and brokenhearted because I love the original name. This character is actually really near and dear to my heart because it was created by both my dad and I. And one of the few, I mean, he's totally into my stuff now, but back then I was just like an angsty teenager. I was like, my dad's not into anything that I'm into. But there was one time we were on a trip and we were in a plane and he saw me drawing and he inquired and he was like, hey, how about we make a character together? And we totally sat down and created this kick-ass character with this like military background. So it's very military based. Kind of like has sort of like a Captain America-ish origin originally, and it since evolved into this schema that will really play out throughout other parts of the New Vision universe. I don't want to really give too much away.
Sure.
But because of that, you'll see Sai Shadow kind of trickled out throughout many other comics. Hopefully I'm working on his origin now, kind of revising it, and I'm hoping to feature some of that in New Vision #1 when we put that out. And of any comic, this is like my love letter to G.I. Joe. Sai Shadow is G.I. Joe to the max. Delta Squadron, if anybody who's into Power Comics, like that whole just military fun laser vibe fighting against just like, and I'm like, I love the comic of G.I. Joe, but I'm talking like cartoon G.I. Joe too. Like there's just going to be cool, weird shit as well. Like sort of Excalibur kind of stuff, things like that. So I'm really excited about Sai Shadow. He is, this character is like really giving me a lot of energy right now.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, it should be noted that, your dad has a military background, so it's not like he was just riffing on Rambo or something. Like what he brought to the table on that trip was, he wasn't talking out his ass.
It's totally cool. I will definitely, when I formulate this comic, it will be noted on there, created by both, Daniel and Roger Moeller, and it'll definitely be dedicated to him and his tenure in Vietnam as a vet. So really cool shit.
That is awesome. My next one from Expanded Earth era is Runic.
Yes,
who you got a glimpse of in Moeller's Psychonaut Presents #3, a little tease of her. But
and in the trade paperback,
yes, that is now out. It's more surreal, thrilling stories than the Rebound stuff, like the comic vibe. But she's a badass sorceress. She's the culmination of an intensely powerful bloodline. So I'm gonna play with some of the, not necessarily, it will have dark aspects to it, but it's going to be more the surreal, the supernatural, the things she contends with in her story. She's kind of our Doc Strange in the Expanded Earth era.
Definitely the Bible of magic in the New Vision universe.
Most of
with Runic.
Yeah, that's accurate. It should be noted too that most of my stuff that isn't with outside of New Vision stuff, because that's comic, but a lot of my stuff is prose. It's short stories, it's novellas, and I will eventually have, right now I have a Harrowed Earth pentology started. Book 2 is about to drop. I'll do Expanded Earth next. And that's where that 5-book little collection of short stories and novellas will be, where you get to know Runic, you'll get to know Rebound, you'll get to know these characters we're talking about of mine, when they're not playing in Vision Tales or whatever else we kick around. As far as, I have one more entry for you and one more for me, but you're for Expanded Earth. But yours kind of, and then, I mean, if there's more you want to talk about, but your last one I had note to ask you to talk about, though, is kind of a duo. So who are Sapphire and Fuse?
Sapphire and Fuse were, these guys were formulated in one of those trips to St. Louis. When we were just sitting in the back of the van and we were going through my notebooks, and when we formulated a team, it was like our first team. It was going to be like our young blood, our Wildcats, our X-Men of New Vision. And it was the real first like union of our things with you, me, and Thrash together. So this team had 2 characters of yours, a character of Thrash's, and 2 characters of mine. And Sapphire and Fuse are my entry point into that. They kind of start off as a duo before they come into the team with everyone else, which will lead actually into our next era. But they're kind of like that prelude piece into the next era of New Vision, which is called Unified Earth. And I love them. Sapphire, I mean, I'm afraid to give like too much.
No, that's fine.
I can just cut out there.
I don't even like, it's like saying Batman and Robin to me. I can't say Sapphire without saying Infuse.
Yeah.
Because it's been a lifetime of Sapphire and Fuse. Like, they have so many adventures that he's got in his head that I can't wait to see what they do, like how that culminates. But
yeah, I mean, I'll just say she's kind of like a Lara Croft, Indiana Jones type character. And he is a pyromancer sort of character who's a part of this like centuries old cult of a sort of sun god.
Like you do.
They're so great team up.
Yeah, that's a solid combo right there. The last one I have for me is Griffin.
Yes.
Is my last of my bigger toys in the Expanded Earth. That's where I'm going to tell most of the darker tales. The more Griffin is actually what we pitched to. We didn't pitch it, but we took it to pitch to Valentino. Was Griffin's first 5 pages. He is basically so picture. Have you ever seen Grosse Point Blank? He is a hitman, assassin, whatever, who has kind of become disillusioned with being a hitman. But he begins to have debilitating psychic visions, like premonitions of people in peril. And these visions will start to really wreck him when he tries to ignore them, because he really doesn't give a shit. Like, it's not like he's morally centered individual. The visions will keep at him, and like he'll get nosebleeds and his brain will like burn up if he doesn't seek out and try to help these people. So it's kind of a if Dr. Sam Beckett in Quantum Leap had next to no moral compass and was like had that situation going on, it's like Jane from Firefly. If he had that situation going on that Sam Beckett had, like combine those 2 characters, it's kind of where he's at. He doesn't jump around in time, but he has a supernatural thing happening. He doesn't know why it's happening, how it started, but if he doesn't help people, these visions will potentially kill him. And he's running around in our Expanded Earth.
It's too bad those pages didn't survive.
Yeah, I know.
They were so good.
That was a bummer. That was really, really good work of yours, too. So, Expanded Earth runs from like the early 90s to 2006. And then there's events that happen, and 2006 to 2016 is our unified Earth era.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what happens in 2006 is it's discovered that aliens are on Earth, and with them, like, vastly new technologies that address most of humanity's problems come about. And it's this golden age of unity on the planet. And humanity begins to kind of cultivate the solar system. They start with all this new tech and this newfound, like, idealism. They begin to search the stars. And so there's not a huge population of humanity on Earth by the end of 2016, like around that era. But in the course of that, in the background, there are basically 4 families collectively known as Ravokdeen, the Ravokdeen, and they may not be up to the greatest good. Like, there's things, this golden era has some pretty broad shadows that certain members of the hero community kind of start to investigate. And that's where the team that Muller mentioned earlier comes into play, the Assailants. And that's where Sapphire and Fuse kind of meet up with Savage and meet up with Genesis, and Graphics are the last members of the Assailants, form the team, the original team. But the Ravokdeen, the 4 families, are the Chrysotast, which are like a humanoid eagle race from the planet Selv. The Tygot Corporation, it's run by Renlo Tygot, who's a Dunbari, another alien race. And then, Muller, would you like to tell the people who the Migo Clan and Zon Enterprises, the third and fourth members of the Ravokdeen, are?
Yeah, so Zon Enterprises, you'll get to see like the introduction of an Oracle. And so they're kind of in charge of like shipping and getting things to and from in this like intergalactic, like underground network sort of situation. And the Migo Clan, headed by Mama Migo, is the like seedy financial like bankers of like these 4 families. They're the ones that run the money and the accounting and all of that. And there's very few of them. The Migo Clan are like one single alien race and not necessarily like a whole like corporation or enterprise like some of the other families. And there's very few of them, and they're a very old, ancient race with these like weird, incredible intellects, but they're just like, instead of like being like, you know, old, ancient, wise ones, like the dudes from the Green Lantern, they decided to be, you know, crime lords instead. And so I'm really excited. You'll actually be seeing a glimpse of them whenever I start doing more maximal stuff. So you'll see like seeds of this planted throughout Expanded Earth if you pay attention, but you don't need, again, like Aaron said, you're not going to need to, you know, have to read this before we get into whatever. But the interesting thing about Unified Earth is it's kind of like in the middle of these 2 different ages that we both have kind of, so I've been playing more in that Expanded Earth box, and you've been playing more in the sandbox of Harrowed. And so like Aaron and I have like the idea of, we know what's going to happen, but we don't have it fully mapped out and formulated. Like we still have things to play with, which we're excited because it's like being kids. So we have little things that we still have to play with in order to make Unified Earth work and bring these 2 like past and future tenses together.
Yep. And that's, yeah, because I mean, we've got to keep it fun for us. I mean, we don't, while it is, a lot of it is maps, the parts that aren't mapped are where we're still getting a kick out of, you know, playing with these toys.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Harrowed Earth is basically humanity has come to the state of like everything's groovy, and then it's not. and something happens. And if you've read Appalachian Blues, book 1 of the Herald Earth series, pentology, you kind of know that whatever gambit that the assailants and other heroes and in coming up against the Ravagdine's forces, like whatever happens, however that plays out, something goes horribly wrong, because Herald Earth is an Earth that is, much where that love of Thundar comes in. It's very desolate. It's Earth, but it's very it's not. There's a fraction of humanity left. There's aliens running amok. There's mystical energies. There's all kinds of problems with the Earth and its inhabitants. But the aliens have won. Basically, there's humanity is not the apex predator, the top dog anymore.
Dystopia.
Yeah.
Thundar.
And it's the year 2026. And there's a star-filled abyss of folded space that residents of Earth refer to as the Shift. And it's where a good chunk of the Pacific Ocean had been. There's nation-sized starships that have completely taken over the world above, and what's left of humanity is trying to survive in a dark, sunless below.
Those poor humans.
Yeah, but it's the main characters there are Jedediah Coldstream, the motorcycle mystic. He roams the wastes of what once was the United States. As a nomad, he's trying to kind of map out this new world, see what's out there, what's livable, if anything, what can be done. And then this is also the era on Earth that, or while that's happening on Earth, this is also the era that Oracle is in, is the Herald Earth era. Just not taking place on Earth. You want to break down Oracle much more?
I've kind of already talked through, so I mentioned that that's where you're going to see your introduction to Zon Enterprises. So it's not that it doesn't, make appearances earlier, but this is where you're going to get your first readership introduction into where they affect other parts of the galaxy. So you're going to get to kind of see that alien influence elsewhere, and how, things could get impacted on Earth and what they're doing to other places. So it's going to be fun. Can't wait to finish it for sure. And actually, Oracle kickstarts a whole odyssey for one of your other characters as well.
Yep. Sojourn comes into play out of Oracle. Yep. Sojourn is my... he is one of the few that haven't changed a ton. It's been very... we were very bounty hunter centric. And he had... an aspect of his life is still his legend is bounty hunter, because he's very long lived, and there was a time in his life where he was a bounty hunter, but he's been a general, he's been a pirate, he's been all manner of things. He is kind of my playing with Robert E. Howard type vibe. He's Conan, he's he's lived a life, and there's lots of different angles to him. But his first appearance will be in Oracle, or wasn't, or a what do you call it? When it was a panel appearance.
Cameo.
Cameos. Yes. Cameo appearances in Oracle #1. He's more involved in Oracle #2, or it was when it initially came out. Well, I didn't know if you'd restructured anything.
Still the same story. I just got to draw it.
That's what we're waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
The only other aspect back on Earth that's book 2, Cicero Wants You, will kind of touch base on, is the Kingdom. And the Kingdom was once Kansas City, Missouri, and it's as far west that a person can travel in 2026 without feeling the effects of the shift. The effects of the shift vary, but they're very with the gravitational pull and everything. Things just get funky the further west you go past the kingdom. But it's got people. People are drawn from all North and South America, kind of trying to get to this bigger city, because there's lots of little villages, there's lots of little hamlets and whatnot scattered about that nomads like Jedediah Coldstream find, but it's the biggest known because the world can't really talk anymore. And one of its residents, who has been a favorite of Muller's since we were kids, is Phantom Stalker. And there's not much known about Phantom Stalker, but he's got a big globe head, and he's not a fan of crime.
What more do you need? What more do you need than a globe head and a crime hater?
Globe-headed crime fighter. That's
all you
Phantom
need in
Stalker.
the world. Yeah, you can see one of the first drawings that I ever did of Phantom Stalker in Vision Comics #0.
Another reason to snag it. It's a blast. I mean, it's
including
a blast.
A story. Like, you start one of the Phantom Stalker stories.
Yep. There is a Phantom Stalker prose piece in there, the first part of one, and it'll kind of. So Vision Tales is much like. Well, before we get into that, let's kind of break down. We've kind of touched on everything, but everything that's out right now that is New Vision related, like, is purchasable, and I mean, all this will be at the show as well at Planet. But so our very first run was Oracle.
Oracle #1 will be available with a new cover in actual comic format, because the original comic format was like manga sized.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be actual comic format with a new cover with an MVCC banner on it and everything under my Psychonaut Comics brand. And the next appearance was Psychonaut Presents #3. You can get it online.
Yep.
That was the first appearance of Runic and Thrash's Arcade.
Yep. Thrash's Arcade is in there.
You can get that in the Psychonaut Presents trade paperback at Comic-Con, and if you just want #3, you can get that online. And then for you,
then the third appearance we had was Herald Earth #1, Appalachian Blues. It's where you'll get to know Jedediah and kind of know the state of the world in 2026. I mean, it's not going to tell you why it's like that, but it's not the most fun place to live. And then the very next,
a fun read.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I'm a little biased, but and then the last thing that'll be available is Vision Tales #0, and that's really the best kickoff, other than this video, which is a little lengthy. And if you're still here, thanks for hanging out.
Kudos to you.
But it's going to be the best place to kind of see Ground Zero, and if reading every part and seeing every part isn't your vibe, I completely understand that. It will help you pick like which parts do sound cool to you. Like, right. Okay, well, I like this idea, but I just want this little part. It'll be the guidepost for you, if you will.
It is like, because we've done some collaborations already, published and non-published collaborations. It is by far the best work we've ever done.
Yeah.
Together. I had so much fun with it, and I'm so happy with the work that we did.
100%.
Vision Tales #0.
Yep, and it's so to further the thought I was getting into is Vision Tales is going to be like our Marvel Comics Presents. The first one is a getting to know you type thing, but moving forward, it will have 3 to 4 story parts, and it'll be serialized, and you can just kind of ride them through, and they'll start and stop, and this one might go 12 parts, this one might go 4 parts. And it's basically just till we're done with that story. And I mean, you might see the same character a lot. I don't know that we quite have a Wolverine in Marvel Comics Presents scenario yet. And I don't know that we were looking for one, but we kind of want to just showcase the different flavors of New Vision Comics Collective.
Well, we are looking for artists, so anybody that wants to, become a famous comic artist, just give us a call. We'd love to have some additional artists help out because I can only do so much.
It's true. I tried to learn to draw, but I'm not. You don't know.
He's actually quite good. You're actually
more
quite
fun
good.
For like
whatever.
We'll
get into that conversation
anyway, yes.
another day. Please come to Planet Comic Con and pick this stuff up because we'll have full stacks of these works there. Actually, yeah, all of them. We'll have all of them there to purchase. Now, the table will be known as New Vision, but we'll have our own individual banners there behind us. So you'll see Daniel Moore, Aaron Conaway. But the table on the app will be known as New Vision Comics Collective.
That's entirely accurate.
Yes. So our contest is if you go on Facebook and you reply going and you actually come and see us, we'll enter your name into a hat. And then you can win that hat, and he'll wear it the whole time. And you have the ability to possibly win a free collaboration by Aaron and I.
Yeah. And I mean, you can riff with us if it's like what you want to, give us some input if you'd like. And we'll get into the ins and outs there. If you win, you'll know. But, and I mean, yeah, come talk to us. If there's more stuff about New Vision you want to know, stop by the table and we're happy to chat with you.
We'll talk forever about this.
It's true. We've talked forever about it already. So
we've talked for 30 years about this.
Yeah, no kidding. So they should seem alive, these characters, at this point. They've been with us long enough. But what else you got? Anything?
I just want everybody to go out there and also look for New Vision Comics Collective. Our website, we'll put the link down there.
The website is a little weak right now, but we're most active on Instagram. A little less so on the Facebook page, but it'll all be down below. Facebook page, Instagram. Give us a shout on the website.
Yep.
We're going to come up with some fun things to do with the website and for subscribers of the website. So you can kind of come hang out with us, come play.
This is the birth. This is it. It's all growing from here.
It's true.
I'm excited.
Me too. It's going to be fun. Planet's going to be a blast.
Yeah.
But we'll see you there.
All right. See you, everyone.
Bye.